Well, good morning, folks. I'm no good with a pulpit. I just... excellent, excellent. Right, it's really good to see you. This is a window into Africa. This is not a whole house. This is not the continent. It's just a peep. And it's my story. So if you've been to Africa and your story is different, this is my story. This is the experience I had from 3 mission trips. So we'll see how we go. So most of them are my own photos. They are not from websites. There's probably, I don't know, half a dozen that are pulled from other places. So most of them are factual. They're what I experienced. And it's, as I say, my own personal experience. Now, a picture is worth, I work with children, all right? So a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if you I give out Bibles in the school, and I give out action Bibles, because when I read a newspaper, what do I look at? I look at the pictures, and then I decide if it's worth reading, all right? So I'm all a visual person. Everything is visual. When I go into school down south, I have props and massive bags of props, and I'm just pulling them out left, right, and center. And that's how I work. So this is visual, so a lot of it is through your eyes, all right? So if you're looking for an academic lecture, this is the wrong seminar. You need to go to a different seminar, all right? So I hope you enjoyed your coffee. Thank you to Anne and Alison, who've stood in and made up the coffee this morning, or maybe had a cup of tea. But I want to take you to Africa. Now, when I was, well, this is a few years ago, but most of you remember Alistair Patterson, and God really used him to build us a house down in Kent. That's another story, for the mission. So this is the kitchen in the house that I live in, kindly. I used to live in a caravan in the mission. I've been in the mission, believe it or not, nearly 40 years. Yeah, I'm that age. So this is at home. So what do you do when you want a cup of tea? So you go in the kitchen. Okay, you turn on the tap, you boil the kettle, and you have a cup of coffee. Okay, so what happens if you go to Africa? Now, this is my experience, okay? So please don't judge it against your experience or somebody else's experience. This is what I experienced from mission trips. So this is in Uganda. What do? They don't turn on a tap. They go to the river. This is reality. This is 5 years ago. This is not 20 years ago. I'm talking 5 years ago. So they either go to the river or the borehole. There are no water taps in their village houses, okay? You just won't see it. See this little guy here? I think he's about 4 or 5. So a wheelbarrow is this much off the floor. He's just a little bit higher. He can't carry it. It's too heavy. So he puts it in a wheelbarrow. This is real life. This is not made up. This is not from a website. This is reality. So then you need to milk the cow. Serious, all right? So you're looking at your cup of coffee. This gentleman here, I don't know whether it's a cup of coffee, cup of tea, all right? So you need to milk your own cow, okay? If you want milk, you got to go milk the cow. There's no fridge, guys, all right? If you want fresh milk, you can't keep it. Your milk in your house will keep a couple of days out the fridge without it all coagulating and it all going funny, all right? You got to milk it regularly if you want a cup of tea with milk in it. Then you've got to gather your sticks, all right? You've got to make your fire, and you've got to boil your water, all for your morning cup of tea. How's that? Huh? So next time you have a cup of coffee, you go into your kitchen, you run the tap, you boil the kettle, you turn the electricity. Think of Africa. Think of what they have to do. They have to collect their water, which is not in the house. They have to gather the sticks. They have to milk the cow. They have to boil the water for your cup of coffee. Wow. All right. So this is a quote. I'm not quite sure who it's from, but we live in luxury every day. Now, the problem is people say, here, we're the, I don't know, one of the most rich countries in the world. But it means nothing, because this is how we live. This is normal. So what I want to do is show you what Africa is. And if you ever get a chance to go, it will be the greatest privilege on planet Earth you can ever get. So this is in the Starfish Malawi is who I went out with first. Chris Knott is a great guy, and I'll tell you a bit more about him in a minute. But this is in the capital. So I'm not sure actually if it was Longwy or Salima, but anyway, this is how they boil their egg. So there's no cooker, but if they want a lunch and they want something like a boiled egg, they have electricity because it's one of the main towns, and that's how they boil an egg. Is that how you boil an egg? I guarantee none of you have done it that way. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to give a book recommendation. All right? Shirley Huff and I work together. She's in Brazil at the moment. She's written her autobiography, all right, made in Brazil. There were 10 on order. We've already sold about 4. $12.99. This is reality of missionary. She was in the Bible College in 1997, about 10 years after me. All right? Easy read, not academic, but reality. Her whole life is not in here. If you knew what she'd been through, it is seriously tough. All right? But if you want a good read, they're $12.99. I've got all the copies up here. You can take one, pay it down in the bookstall, and then if we need more, and I want you to get more because he didn't believe I'd sell. I wanted 50 to sell, but I said 25, so he got 10. So, do take it, pay down there, and he can order more within the week. You get it at the end of the week. So that's just a little thing. So I'm looking at a window into Africa. Okay, so why do folk go to Africa? Okay, most people go on safari, isn't it? That's about right, okay? So I've been on 3 mission trips. Does anyone know where David Livingstone went? Well, one of the places was Malawi. I think it's the 6th poorest country in the world. And then I went one time with Starfish Malawi to Malawi, and then a couple of times to Uganda, once with my church, and once with David Ohin, his team. I don't know if anyone remembers, he was in the mission at one point. So, a day in your life. So I need to compare it a bit with you guys, because you live normally, I assume, all right? So you get out of bed. This is not my bed, all right? It's not this tidy. You get up and you switch on the electricity, all right? If you get up at 5 or whatever, or 6, you probably switch on the electricity. Okay, so in the villages in Africa, where I was, no electricity, all right? You have not got electricity in your house. So what do? They rise at dawn and they go to bed at dusk because the light fails, all right? So I'm going to take you to Mepham. So I live in Kent for the Faith Mission. I work for them down in Kent in Mepham. So the 3 houses at the top, that is in Mepham. Now, I live in a beautiful house the mission built. But this is to compare what the village I'm in is like with Africa, all right? So in Africa, this will be your home in the village. This is reality. This is not made up. And about every 3 or 4 years, you will need to rebuild your house. Now, I recognize that if you're in the city, it's different, all right? If you're in the town, it'll be different. But this is where I was working in the villages. And masses live in the villages, okay? So this is your house, okay? So there's no front door, okay? It's just open to the world. And if you look at village life in Britain, it's all pretty neat and tidy with all the roads and everything. But this is village life in Africa, okay? So this was my bedroom before I made a complete clutter of it. So if you go to Africa, this is one of the children's bedrooms. So the bed is on the floor, and this was a pastor's house, and their bed, there was no window in the room for the children, and all 3 children slept in the same bed. So this is the bathroom down where I live. So if you go to Africa, there's no showers, there's no baths. So when you next soak in your nice hot bath, when you next turn the tap on, when you stand under the hot shower, remember people in Africa, they have no running water in the house, all right? They have no electricity in the house. We live in pure luxury. And you'll never understand that until you go to Africa. Okay, so the toilet is one of the key parts of a house, in my personal opinion, all right? So this is the toilet. It's outside, all right? Usually, there's no door. When I went, there's a huge school I went to, and there's the toilets outside. There was no door, there was no curtain, there was nothing. There was a window into the field where someone was doing something in the field. Why? Like, no glass in it, obviously. All right, why? I have no idea. All right? So you walk in, it's a massive school premises. There's no door. So as a human being, I'm thinking, I'm not very protected here, as in, you know, so there's a hole in the floor, there's no running water, there's no toilet paper, there's just a hole. So it's a bit scary, because you sort of need someone on guard just to make sure no 6 kids, but I don't think they really use it, to be honest. So this is what it's like, okay? Swarms of flies, because it just goes into the ground, all right? There's no tank. Don't be thinking there's a nice tank and a nice channel system. There's no tank, all right? There's flies everywhere, and pleasant smell, but one aerosol can will not remove the smell. And there's no toilet roll, okay? None, all right? Now, very kindly in Lira, they gave us a toilet roll because we were foreigners, all right? So, but it's not normal. You'll not see any toilet roll hanging there. And no antiseptic stuff or anything like that. So this is the pastor's sitting room. So no ornaments, no electricity, no computer, no TV. This is the basis of it. So normally to school in Britain, they'll go probably by car. But in Malawi, they'll be on foot. And there'll be no shoes. Shoes is a rich man's domain, all right? There's about 1 million orphans in Malawi. Now, an orphan doesn't mean they've lost both parents. It means they may have only lost one parent, all right? But the parents may well not be able to afford clothes on the back or shoes on the feet. So most of them go barefoot. And I tell you, there's big, massive, like, tree stumps and things. Like, you know, I wouldn't go near it with a barge pole, but there you go. All right? So if they have a pair of shoes, that is treasure. All right? If they have a pair of shoes, they don't lose them. One pair, I'm talking. One pair. Okay? So what's it like for a day in the life of a mum? So when she comes to the washing up, she washes her hands. Nah. There's no running water, all right? She's got a bare ground on the floor, and she's got some water from the borehole, and she just does it in a corner of the room. Washing, you know how even a man can shove it in, because now it's quite simple, all right? But, oh, sorry, maybe that was the wrong thing to say. I was on a mission trip once, and they gave us, is it a twin tub where you put it in one here and one here? Well, normally you shove it in and you go off visiting. That's the normal part of, well, I didn't realize what a hullabaloo. We had to be there for about an hour, moving it from here to here, and I'd never heard anything like it in my life. So this is washing, reality washing. You go down to the river. Have you got fairy liquid soap crystals? No, all right? It's reality, okay? So I was very kindly given a hotel with the team in Uganda. So what do? Washing sheets in the hotel, all right? What do? They hand wash them. That's life. What do you expect? There's nothing else. So the ladies go off to work. As far as I could see, most of the men lazed around on bikes all day. And that's reality. I'm not talking, you know, they really did. You saw them all day, every day, just lazing around. So it's the women that go to do. And what happens is it's a cash society. So if they grow their tomatoes, they sell their tomatoes, that's what they've got. They are not going to spend it on soap or a toothbrush. That's for the rich. They buy maybe a bit of cloth for their child, or maybe a pair of shoes, or some other food to live on. Okay? So what the mum grows is the money she gets. That's it. So if your harvest fails from your little backyard, you're in trouble. So what happens in shops down south? Okay, it's all ordered. There's a computer, and it's all ordered. But if you go out to Africa, it's a completely different story. Okay? So this is our local post office down in Mepham, and there's next to it there's a fantastic card shop. But if you go out to Africa, they don't have cards, they don't have post, you know? A stamp, you can't. What is a stamp today? It's quite a lot. There's no cards, there's no post, there's no birthday cards. That just doesn't happen. If you're poor, you're poor, all right? You've hardly enough to put clothes on your kid's back and feed them, let alone anything else. You're not going to start buying postcards and stamp them. Anyway, there's no post boxes, there's no post. There's no postman in the villages. So this is our local doctor's surgery, and we have a pharmacy within it. Forget it, okay? Just not going to happen. So Starfish Malawi, which is one of the ones that I first went out to, they've in 2022 just opened Hope Clinic. It's headed up by Chris Knott. I'm jumping ahead, but it doesn't matter. So Chris Knott had a random, he's a lovely guy. He's in probably his 70s. His wife's from Japan. He lives about an hour from where I am. He worked in insurance services. So he was, you know, pretty serious guy. And he had his job, and that was fine. He got this random letter saying, can you help us build a church in Malawi? And he didn't know where it was from. So he thought, right, I'll go and visit. So he went out to visit. What happened? Sold his business, set up Starfish Malawi, which is this, and he has been instrumental in doing a huge amount for Malawi in a small area. So an ambulance in the past would have been maybe 2 wheels on sort of a wooden pallet, and that's an ambulance. You push it along. So he's built Hope Clinic, which is a medical center. I think they have something like 4,000 coming through each month. Because otherwise you'd be walking 6-7 miles. If you're sick, and we had a gentleman on our bus run, if Matthew's here, he was sick. Now, on Monday, he was really sick. He was shivering. I'm not going into the details. Went to A&E, got the diagnosis, got the medical stuff. He's right as rain. Now, he'd have had to walk 6 or 7 miles to the nearest hospital. So Chris has got a medical clinic up and running. They've just started doing a maternity unit. And so, there's no doctors locally. If you're sick, too bad, mate. You've got to somehow get 6 or 7 miles. Now, that you're not going to find a taxi. You're not going to find a bus. If you get a bicycle, you're doing well. It's a different world to us. So we have a library in Mepham New Build because they rebuilt the secondary school. Well, the kids haven't got a book. They haven't seen a picture. They don't know what a picture is. It's a completely different world. And unless you go, it doesn't make sense. Now, this is beyond belief. We have a small row of shops in Mepham. And you know what opened? And forgive me if I'm going to offend you. I have no idea about nails or anything. It doesn't float my boat. I'm sorry. All right? This opened. The nail box. What do? They paint people's nails. Are you joking? Have you not got better things to spend your money on? Have you not better ideas than open a... I could not believe it when I saw this. I thought, are you joking? What planet are we on? You have to go to a shop and have someone put some paint. I can take you down to the kids' club and get some paint on your nail, and I'll not charge you. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I saw this in our village. I just thought, well, that is completely nutty. Now, if you paint your nails, go for it. But I don't understand these things. Then I went to our park, one of my favorite parks for walking. And what did I find? Now, this takes the biscuit. A dog wash. Are you joking me? Like in Africa, they haven't got electricity, they haven't got water. They're not washing themselves. They're probably miles from the river. The borehole, you've got to pump it up. You get a bucket of water. A dog, they haven't got pets. They haven't got water for themselves. I couldn't believe it. I thought, what planet are we on? This is complete. How can you go to a shop to get your nails done? To me, it was like, what? This is just nutty. What is a nail? It's something that grows to protect your thumb. You don't paint them. Wait, I couldn't. I thought, and as for washing a dog, I mean, you put it in this, it's a shower. Well, obviously I didn't try it, but I haven't got a dog. I thought, man, this is completely crazy world we live in. So mainly it's bicycles over there, if you can afford a bicycle. And the big thing is when you're out there, the tires pop from the heat. So that's the big thing. So these are the roads, very, very dusty. This is one of your main roads, all right? So if you live near New Forest, like I used to, you'll have the little ponies trekking across the road. That's all quite normal. That's part of life. But here, just be cows wandering around. You know, don't panic. It's just normal. Well, like, what do you expect? This is Africa. Roads aren't for cars. They're for anything. So, yeah, you could get anything. So I've been recently working in Old Bexley, which is, I don't know, half an hour from London. And this was me coming home from school a couple of weeks ago. So what's on our roads? Now, if there were a load of cows on this, or bicycles, I don't think they'd have a hope. The place is jammed with cars. And so if it rains, what do? You put up your wee umbrella. And so this is part of natural life in Africa. So, of course, if you can afford to take a van or a car, if you can afford a car, or if you can afford a truck, and they'll pile them on. It's way too expensive, generally speaking. So they're stacked full, all right? So this was in Mepham a couple of weeks ago. I was sitting, I don't know what I was doing, and I noticed this car, all right? One person and a dog. That's what we have in Britain. Why are we so rich? That's why we're rich. We've got a car. We've got a dog. We're not giving half a dozen people a lift. It's a completely different world. So you want a road repair? You do it yourself. Well, I tell you, we could do with a few down south, because I tell you, the potholes are rubbish. I had a burst tire on a motorway, it was actually, and I've had a couple, in fact. But and you're meant to be able to write to the council to say, you know, due to your road, oh, I got nowhere, forget it, you know. Well, forget it in Malawi. I mean, come on, just get a few bricks and fill it in. So if you break down, what do? You have a triangle, and, you know, you get the police waving. No, you just bring a few leaves and put them around the road, and then, you know, somebody knows something's happened, all right? If you really go at it, well, forget about breakdown vehicles, you're done, all right? You repair yourself, and that's it, okay? And it's pretty hard manual labor. You know, the top is Mepham, where I live, and the bottom is the reality of trying to change a tire in Africa. So this is just the reality. So let me take you now. Now, we got on the menu this week, you'll be glad to know, chicken curry. Sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah. And, or maybe it's beef curry. I don't know what it is, but anyway, it's a curry. So, all right. So I seem to go off my food in Africa, and I wonder why. So this is in my local supermarket, so it's all neatly packaged. Why do they wrap cucumbers? Like, what planet are we on? Like, what? I mean, why? If you're going to wrap a cucumber, wrap an apple. Like, what is wrong with us? Like, we are just completely lost the plot. So this is the fresh meat where I am, all right? So what do you get when you go? This is reality. You'll get a goat. Now, they can't afford goats, okay? That's reality. So, but if they're going to sell meat, it hangs by the dusty road. So why did I not eat any meat when I was out there? I could not stomach it. The reality of it, and not only will the goat be hanging there, but the next one is waiting in queue alive. So if there isn't the demand for it, they'll kill it and then strip it and hang it up again. So this is next to the real dust of the world. How did I go vegetarian? Well, it didn't take me much once I'd seen all this. So what happens to your chicken? So you get your chicken, and it's just sitting there nicely packaged. This is what they do with chickens in Africa. They sell them alive, because then if it doesn't sell, then they have it alive. They've got nowhere to put it if they kill it. So they hang it by the roadside, and they're hanging it upside down. Because if it doesn't sell, they need it alive. All right? So I tell you, it put me off meat. So what happens with your fish? Absolute treat. They hang it on the outside of the cart. Now, obviously, this was us. All right, so this is why there's a cart here, okay? So it doesn't stink out. They haven't got bags to put it in, or what's those fridge boxes you carry if you're going on a picnic half an hour from here for the afternoon and it's dull anyway? You don't need one of those frozen boxes. No, they just hang it on the outside. So this is the reality of what it's like. So I can't be too long because I've got a time limit. So this is the reality. So when you want to go home, this is what you do, all right? What has he got? He's rich. He's got a bicycle. He's rich, all right? So you load it, okay? So what about jobs? Now, I had to smile about this. So he's doing second-hand. So this is in Old Bexley where I've just been a shoe doctor. He has a house in Old Bexley. He has windows. He has electricity. He's not like Timpson's on the side of Asda or wherever. This is a whole building for a shoe doctor. And what do? They're on the side of the road in Africa. And then if they grow cotton, which there is cotton there, they'll water it by hand. So this headmaster here, oops, I'm going too fast. He's a great guy. This is Rentobo in Uganda. This is his office. He's a Christian. So they were building, the church I went with gave a lot of finance towards developing the school. So, of course, there's handmade scaffolding. Health and safety? Who invented that? Like now where I am, if you're a scout, you're only allowed a foot off the ground. Otherwise, you're breaking all the health and safety rules. So, and these little kiddies, I mean, it's a playground. You know, a few ladders, you know, snakes and ladders, up they go. No issue, you know. Helmets? What's a helmet? They can't afford a helmet. Are you joking? So the school, it's all done by voice, all right? There's no visuals. There's nothing, all right? It's all done by voice. They pack in, and this is, so naturally, if you're a little guy, you're not going to stay awake all day listening to a voice. So this was the school I was in, my classroom, that I was working in. So what have we got? We've got running water, we've got an interactive board, we've got signs. And if you go to Malawi or Uganda, they've got a board. If you find some chalk, that's miraculous. There's no chalk. What does Chris do? He sends out stacks of chalk, all right? And it's all, if there's any posters at all, it's all handwritten, and, you know, how long it's been up there, I would not have a clue, all right? So, and this is the nursery part of education. But the children are so happy. I am not kidding. They are off the planet happy. You couldn't dream it. They are just unique. So some of their sports facilities. Now, school lunch, because a lot of them are in literal poverty, as in they can't afford food. There's no food banks or anything like that, all right? Can't hardly afford food and clothes and stuff. So they provide them lunch at school. So this is how they did it. This is actually what happened. And, I mean, look, you know, we've got no children in the kitchen, please, all right? No children in the kitchen. This little guy, like, suddenly, you know, he's next to this huge pot, you know, and he's not even the size of the pot. So it's all done. So if you come home from school here, you'll get a snack, a Coke, or whatever. Do you know, in Malawi, if they got one sweet, I'm talking one, that was like gold dust. They don't get sweets. They just reveled if you gave them one sweet. And then they don't go home, watch TV, or go out play football. This guy, he's herding the goats. Okay, and where we are, the secondary school is just extended. But in Malawi, you have to pay for secondary school. So, of course, they don't go. So one of the things Starfish do is they do sponsorship for secondary, to sponsor people going to secondary school. So if you're interested in that, the leaflets are on that side, just if you happen to be interested. Okay, so an orphanage out there, and I am watching the clock, the orphanage out there is, it may be they've only lost one parent. So it doesn't mean to say they're completely no parents. They maybe just lost one parent, but the parent can't afford to give them clothes or food. So Chris set it up, Glad Tidings, so they do a food program. What do? You go get the sticks first. This is just normal life, all right? You brew up the big pot, and they have what's called seema. Oh, it's just horrid. It's just, there's no salt, no sugar. It's just, in fact, I mean, it sounds awful, but they gave me a plate of seema, and I don't know what kind of leaves they were. And I put it down to take some photographs. I tried it, and then thankfully when I came back, it had gone. It was really horrible. I lived off pineapple when I was out there. So this is how they do it. All the ladies come together, and then they feed them. So in UK, if you're cooking up your meal, this is one I got from the internet. I'm sure marriage isn't always this blissful. This is Agnes, one of the key workers, and this is her getting lunch ready at home with the sticks and everything. And if you have playtime in the UK, Lego or a bike or bouncy castle painting. So playtime in Africa, well, there's a few odd things, but they make their own plays. And if they find anything, a ribbon or a piece of cardboard, that will be their toy. One ribbon or one piece of cardboard or one little matchbox, anything they will make a toy out of. And then, of course, we came over with cameras, and they couldn't believe it. You know, they're looking at themselves like, "Ooh, look!" You know, there's no mirrors or anything. You know, they don't know what they look like because there's no mirrors. So they're like, "Oh, look! Ooh!" It's just so cute. And then I don't know. When I was brought up on a series called Catweasel, and you've probably never heard of Catweasel. But he was a crazy guy who had never lived in the 21st century. And so when he was given a telephone, he thought it was a bone that was talking. So he said, talking bone, look, talking bone. And it was like this with these kiddies, you know. You give them oh, look. So it's just such a gem. So in half-term holidays, this is what maybe we get up to. In Africa, it is absolutely stunning. This is what we were privileged to see, the zebras, and, you know, this little chappie, he just catches a ride on the front of your car, no bother. But they can't afford to go there. Maybe half an hour down the road, there's a lovely lake, Lake Malawi. They can't afford to go there, so they've never seen any of it because they haven't got any money. And if you look at a church in England, in Malawi, if you go to the church, you see the edge there, it's just sort of made up. And then if you see what are they sitting on, it's just bricks and no shoes, and they maybe have a chair for the person in charge. So this is one of the churches I was privileged to speak in, and I mean, it looks magnificent. But you look the village that is literally, if the church is here, the village is at the back wall, this is what you see, the poverty. So the church is absolutely stunning inside and out, and packed, may I say. But you look out the door, it's all just poverty. It's just rags. You know, it's just literally horrendous. This was inside the church, totally packed. And in Uganda, one church, it started in the 1930s with 75. This is what it is today. It was absolutely jam-packed. They have services at 8, 10, 12, 2, and they've got 10 church plants. It is a different world. So this is Chris Knott, who founded Starfish Malawi, and his aim is to reach one. And I've got leaflets, and they're over here. He didn't ask me to do this, but he's a great guy. It is a Christian charity. And so I first went out to Malawi under him, and they do lots of things. But they have about 15 children's clubs in the area. And you've got to remember, the guys doing it and the lasses doing it, they have to get there on foot or by bike. You know, if they're going out to, I don't know, Dalkeith or somewhere, they've got to go by bike. You know, it's not, you don't just catch a bus or get in your car. And the children are just absolutely a blessing. And then the next thing they do is Bible Explorer. Now, that's actually what I do in school. So this is Wiseman, who heads up the team. There's quite a lot of them doing it. In 2012, they got a lady from South Africa to come over and teach it because they thought it would be more relevant for the African situation. And they do the full 77 signs, but they've reduced it in us. So we start with creation, fall, flood, nations, Joshua, Judges. We do the whole lot over 5 weeks, an hour a week. So, and then they do a similar program. And then we do the life of Christ, his crucifixion, all the rest of it. And so they now are in about 57 schools. There's about 12,500 they teach each year. And I think they've taught about 64,000 in the last 5 years. So this is something. Now, I'm not sure if this is Lilongwe or Salima, but what happened was, if you go to the main shop, the area for toys was about 6 foot by 4 foot, all right? There was hardly a toy on it. And there was certainly no queue of anyone getting to it, because nobody can afford them. And that's the reality. So what does Chris do? Every year he sends out a massive container. And because I'm not far from retirement, I've collected, because any of my stuff I've used, flashcards, easels, boards, dry white pens, a lot of it, nobody in England is going to give you 1 penny for it. It's just irrelevant. So what do? You give it all to Malawi. They can't afford anything and they can't source anything. So Stevie Walker has given us a flannel graph. They use that out there. Did you give one, Myrtle? I think you gave one. That's out there because they have no books. They have no visuals. They have no TV. So pop it all in the container, and schools are linked up, and they send out old desks and all sorts of things. And as I say, they have a building program. One of the things I did was I went with my church to Rentobo, and I was meant to do the teaching, only it was an election. So the schools, what happens on Thursday? Maybe nobody knows here, but there's something going on Thursday, but it's not as important as the convention, so don't worry about it. All right? So I thought, oh, great. I've done all this preparation. I've got all my suitcases. You know, putting in swords, I didn't put in the ones I use school here because I thought, well, if they see a sword in the case, it'll probably get confiscated. So I thought, oh, that's just a bother. So what they did in Rentobo, they made school optional, okay? This is one of the schools I went into in England. So if school was optional, would they go in Britain? Do you think they'd go? Not a hope. You know how many turned up in there? 70% turned up because they love it. All right? So how do we teach? So they say you learn, I'm watching the clock and it's running away with me. Don't panic, it's not lunch yet. 20% of what you hear, 50% what you hear and see, 90% of what you do. So what do? We do actions. So Joan Houghton, if you know Bernard, he's in glory now, made a whole lot of costumes for me, a huge suitcase, and off we went, and we were taking everything into the classroom. And anything I had, it was theirs, all right? So this was, I normally do like creation, fall, and New Testament, Jesus' life, etc., all right? So this was, I have to go a little bit quick, but this was there were about 85 packed in when we were doing the triumphal entry. The lad doing Jesus was incredible. He was just a joy to work with. The hotel manager had given me some Coke for the wine for the Last Supper and some bread. This was him kneeling in Gethsemane, and then we acted it all out. And then they built me a huge, massive 5-foot cross, and we reenacted the whole scenario. And when it came to the resurrection, there were a couple of lads who literally lifted him up. They absolutely love it. It was a privilege. So being in the mission, I believe we preach for a verdict. We don't just stand there. and I better be careful what I say. But I believe you pull the net in, guys. Don't leave it loose or the fish get away. So I talked about the 2 thieves on the cross and that we had a choice, but you should only do it if you are really, really sincere. So I said if anyone wanted to trust the Lord Jesus, and about 90% of the class responded, and I thought, oh dear, maybe this isn't clear enough. So I led in a prayer of commitment, and then I asked how many, and they just respond. And then I said, okay, now, if you really have trusted the Lord Jesus, if you really asked him to forgive you, now this is in school. If I did this in school in England, I would be hung, drawn, and quartered. I would be out that door like an absolute, well, I'd be at the police station, basically. So this was their school. And so I said, okay, if you really have trusted, you need to tell someone. So they're on tables of 4. No pen, no paper. They've got desks, but no pen, no paper. And so I said, turn to the others and tell them what you've done. There was a buzz of chatter, just a complete buzz of chatter. And then I taught them, I will never leave you, because there are no Bibles. You know, there's nothing for them to read. And you never guess what? The headmaster had been teaching them that verse. And it was like, yes, hallelujah. And then I gave them, I don't know if you, what I give them is these wee bands to tell them how to teach the gospel, the sin, how Jesus died, how to have a clean heart, how to go to heaven. And green can either be for creation, or it can be growing in Christ, or go tell someone else, like the traffic lights. And so you knew who'd been to your class that day, because they all had. And these are treasure, of course. They haven't got anything like that, you know, so anything. So tremendous, tremendous privilege. Now, if Gordon's in here, don't panic. I can see the clock, all right? So let me just tell you the last little one. This was with David Ohin. So now I've been to Starfish. I've got an idea. I've been out with my church, done some teaching in school. So this is David, and he just said, right, I do the main mission, because, you know, he can do all that stuff. And he says, you do the kids' mission. I said, oh, okay, I've got a slight hang of what Africa does. So, it was unique. So we were meant to be at the prayer. Now, David is Swiss, all right? So the time is the time. Exactly. No messing, all right? But Africa time is not Swiss time. So the prayer meeting was meant to be at 9:10. We had to be collected in a minibus. But they decided, well, it's fine. We need to wash your minibus. Not the day before, the morning that we were due at the prayer meeting. And then the fuel tank was empty. It's fine, you know, fill up the fuel. So we'd had the prayer meeting. We went off to the children's club, okay. So there's, I think, 3 of us, me, a translator, and another lass running this kids club. I had no idea what I was letting myself in for. So when we get to the minibus, it says, right, we're going to go. We need to set up, you know, because you've got easels and boards and, you know. No, they provided 2 chairs. And it says, have a seat. I said, no, I need to set up. We haven't unlocked the church yet. I'm thinking, man, please let me set. Oh, no, it doesn't work like that. So initially we had about 70. But it's crazy. We got up to about 120 in this hall. And the hall's just like the hall. And the 12-year-olds look after the little babies. So they're just out on a mat. We ran out of chairs, so they just sit out on a mat. And do you know, they love to worship. Oh, man. See us worshiping. I was watching the other day. I can't remember what we were singing, but, you know, whatever it is. Our faces are drawn, you know. I don't know whether we think about the words sometimes, but these guys, they are just, they're right in there. And of course, when you say, what are you thankful for when it comes to prayer? What are they thankful for? Basic food, chicken, tomatoes, apples. They don't talk about toys or your Xbox, or they have no idea. They don't even know they exist, probably. So I brought in a scoring system. And remember, they have nothing. They have no access to TV, to books, to toys, not even one toy. So when I went out, I brought masses of, you can get them from all over, pound shops and everything, rhinoceros, elephant, giraffe, zebra, mouse. Packed the suitcase, prayed hard the suitcase would arrive. So that night I slept with all these animals. Thankfully, they weren't very noisy, but it was a bit like Noah's Ark. So off I go, typical. If you know I'm going to school, there'll be masses of props. And so what we did, we taught from the props and handed them all out. And so off you go, lions in Lyra. You know, they're just everywhere. So anyone who's been to the club, and thankfully we had about 100, and there were about 100, and they all got something. And you know, there was a little boy, he was so small, he had this little black and white bear, and it was Tiddly. But it was so precious. The next day he came back, and it's red dust out there, and it was covered in red dust. But it was like his closest treasure on earth. And it was just such a joy. And they just come more and more. Well, the next day we were doing sin. Well, you can't hand out sin, can you? So we act out Adam and Eve and all the rest of it. And a couple of the angels, they went off pottering in their outfits. So there were angels wandering around Lyra. And one lad said, "Can I have the sword?" Well, thankfully, most children had gone, so I gave them the sword. Because, you know, you've got to be careful. You give one, half a dozen of them want it. So what do? Like, how do you explain sin? So we thought, right, I tell you what, we'll give them all a sweet because that's treasure. Well, they were pushing and shoving, and I said, "Stop!" And then, you know, and then that happened several times. I said, now that's what sin is. Because I don't know whether we went around a second time or whether other kids heard sweets were being given out, but it was chaos. Well, not quite. I said, guys, this is what sin is. Pushing, shoving. But they did it because, you know. So we go all through with acting it, and they're absent. So the wise men went off with their suits. The king went off in his suit. The shepherds. And, you know, I took flashcards for some of the stories, but they haven't seen a picture. You know? So they're like on eyes on glue. They're just like unbelievable. It was sort of organized chaos, I have to admit. It was... so when we did games, the trouble is you've got, you know, they all pile in. I'm still trying to set up. So I said, the translator, I set him off with a football. They don't have football. So I said to the two captains, I said, right, you take the football home. Well, that's treasure. So the next day I said, where's your football? It's too precious to bring back. So they never brought the football back. It's nothing to us, you know. So we had to pace out the goals with chairs, and we had to find the middle. And by the end of it, they needed the borehole. They played because they haven't got a football to play with. And then Voy was doing duck, duck, goose with the little ones because the age range is this. And the girls were playing catch. So it's completely crazy. And so, as I say, we acted out the whole. And because of that, you remember what you read, see, and do. Because I know in school, if one child acts out Samson, he will remember that story. It's a fact. So this is what we do. And look at Herod. He was a tiny little tinker. See with the red, he was a knee-high to a duck. And look at the score in his trousers. And they made me a lovely big cross, and it was a huge room, about this size, to be honest. And so we went right through. And then when it came to it, we were leading in prayer. And then, because I believe you've got to bring people to trust the Lord. What happens is between them and God. I have no idea. I can't save anyone. But God can do the miraculous. He can raise a preacher. He can raise a missionary. He can do the miraculous. And then I gave them all those wee bracelets. And this is Pastor George. I gave him a little set of Mary. He wears the same suit every children's books. No, they haven't got Bibles. So the memory verses you teach are key. But someone lovely donated Bibles. What a privilege. So where we were working with David, these Bibles were just, they were stacked up. And they've got pictures. It's just a joy. And then I had the joy, Isaac was the Sunday school teacher, and he happened to have a laptop and a mobile. And so I showed him, do you know Free Bible Images? They've got stacks of pictures of the Bible in. Absolutely brilliant if you've never heard of it. So I showed him that. And then he said, is there anything with video? And there was Max 7 on the Lost Shepherd. And so we had a group of kiddies around this little tiny computer watching like the lost sheep and the birth of Christ, like on eyes on stick as they watch it. It was just incredible. And nearly everything I had, they wanted everything. I had cardboard to make the boards. They wanted everything, scissors, string, the pictures I had of creation. It just all goes, the whole lot. They want everything you've got, however small the sheets. We made a parachute out of 2 sheets, and they loved it when they all lay down, and we wafted them. They loved it. And to me, that sheets is like, it's dust rags now, but not to them. The lady who took it, they were precious to her. So we live in one of the, and don't worry, Gordon, wherever you are, I've got my eye on the clock. We live in one of the, it's not lunchtime yet, guys. We live in one of the wealthiest parts of the world. Now, general election's coming up, and Rishi Sunak says if he gets in, he wants to reintroduce national service, all right? Now, I wouldn't do that. I think this is what I would do. Okay, I would get all the young folk. So this is a quote. If you have food to eat, which you all have, own a pair of shoes, which you all have, and have a roof over your head, you are rich compared to most of the world. If you own a car or a bicycle, you are very rich. Okay? So what would I do with those young folk of 18, 16, 17, 18? I would send them to Africa for 2 weeks, because if they saw the poverty, they would not only love it, but they would realize that turning on an electric switch is for the rich. Getting water out of a tap is for the rich. Going to a toilet with a toilet seat is for the rich. Toilet paper is for the rich. I wouldn't get them to national service. I would get them to Uganda or Malawi. Let them see it. And some of them will get a burden. So Starfish Malawi, their key is, there was a dad and his son going along a beach, and there was just high tide, and there were just starfish all on the beach, stranded. So the little boy picked one up and threw it back, picked another, threw it back, picked another, threw it back, picked a... What are you gonna... You can't do all those starfish. So it's not going to make any difference. And the boy picked one up and said, well, it'll make a difference to this one. And even if one life was saved when I was in Uganda or Malawi, that's worth $1 million to me. One life. I don't know what the numbers were, and I don't care. It's God's work. It's not my work. Each one is special. They need to hear. So what do you need to do? You can pray. You could go. You could go with Chris. He's a great guy. But you could also support Starfish if you feel a burden or a passion. So I brought leaflets if you're interested. And do have a look at Shirley's book. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to give a taste of what rich is. And rich is sitting on those chairs. Rich is going to the toilet. Rich is having food on your plate. Rich is going to North Berwick on an outing. Rich is having more than one layer of clothes on your back. Rich is having a pair of glasses that you can see. Rich is having a book you can read. Rich is having a television you can watch Wimbledon on. And we don't really understand that. If you ever get a chance to go to Africa, it is absolutely awesome. And if you don't have a chance to go, look up Chris's website. And if you have a spare penny or two, I'm not working for Chris, but he's a Christian, and it's a charity he founded. But I hope even as you go and switch on an electricity bulb, or you have your meal, or you sit on a chair, or you read a book, you think, God bless Africa. They're precious. And they're precious to God. And if there's anyone here under 100 and you would like to go, Chris would very definitely take you. And he will show you Africa. And there may be someone who says, do you know what? I'd love to go. I'd love to be called of God. Now, I wrote to David and Donna text or whatever I did, and I said, it was the highlight of my career, going out to Lira. You know what he said? I'm a couple of years, 2 or 3 years from retirement. So I've been giving all my stuff away to Malawi. He says, oh, we must do it again. I'm thinking, what? But there you go. May God bless you. Let's close in a prayer. Father, we love you. We are very privileged. And sometimes it's difficult to understand that. But you are God. You've given us a window into what it's like on the other side of the world. And maybe there's someone here who would love to go to Africa as a missionary, to give of themselves, guide them, lead them, help them. Maybe somebody will be willing to give, bless them abundantly. But God, I pray that we would just have an eye open to Africa, to the poverty, to the desperation, to the love, to the joy. But God, just show us where we should be supporting as a missionary, as an organization, as a people. And Father, just help us understand what it is to switch a light switch, to eat a 3-course meal, to sit on a chair, and to worship you. So Father, for any of those who did trust you, or those years ago, bless them, encourage them. May there be missionaries and preachers, and may you be glorified. In Jesus' name, amen.